When you stop caring, he starts obsessing. Not because you've manipulated, not because you've played a game, but because something inside you has shifted. Something he never thought would. And now, it haunts him. You used to care. Deeply. Almost too much. You waited for his texts. Read between every word. You asked if he was okay when he grew distant. You softened your voice when he was angry. You forgave what should never have been forgiven. You loved him out loud. And in return, you were met with silence, coldness, the kind of absence that makes you feel like a ghost even while you're still alive. But now, something is different. You no longer wait. You no longer bend. You no longer break your own heart just to keep the peace. And that is when he starts noticing. In this video, we're going to peel back the layers of what really happens when you stop caring. Not as a tactic, not as a punishment, but because your soul simply cannot bleed for someone who refuses to see it. We'll explore the invisible shift he feels but cannot explain, the haunting silence that echoes louder than your old cries, and why, when you finally walk away with no rage, just peace, it's the thing that leaves him obsessed, tormented, spinning in the ruins of what he once thought he could control. If you've ever given your all and still felt like it wasn't enough, this is for you. If you've ever held your breath to keep someone else from leaving, only to realize you were the one drowning, this is your story. And if you've ever wondered why they come back when you finally move on, we'll talk about that too. So take a breath. Sit with me. This isn't a lesson. This isn't advice. This is a remembering of who you are, of what you deserve. If this already speaks to something in you, feel free to subscribe or leave a comment about where you are in your healing. You don't have to say much. Just a heart emoji tells me everything. Let's begin. There was a moment, maybe you remember it, when something small broke inside of you. It wasn't a fight, not a slammed door, not even a betrayal. It was quiet. It was ordinary. But it was the last time you cared in that same way. Maybe he forgot something important. Maybe he laughed when you cried. Maybe you reached for him not physically but emotionally, and his silence was so sharp it cut you clean. And it didn't hurt in the usual way. This time it felt final. That's when the shift began. Before that, your love was a lifeline. You stayed awake at night replaying conversations, trying to find the right words to fix what kept breaking. You twisted yourself to become smaller, quieter, easier. You convinced yourself that he just needed time, that you were too much, that loving him was a skill you hadn't yet mastered. But you see, love doesn't ask you to vanish. And slowly, without fanfare, your spirit grew tired of proving itself to someone who never even learned how to see it. That's when you began to let go. Not out of anger, anger still cares. No, you let go out of stillness. The kind that comes after the storm. The kind that no longer begs for shelter, because it has become the sky. And he felt it. He may not say it. He may never admit it. But something inside him shifted too. A strange discomfort. A restlessness. A question that wasn't there before. Why is she so quiet? At first, he might tell himself you're just being distant, that you'll come around. You always do. He expects the chase, the apology, the way you used to wrap your own pain in soft words just to keep things together. But days pass, and the silence stretches. And something inside him begins to ache, because here's the truth: he never believed you'd stop caring. He knew you loved deeply, and he counted on it. Your devotion was his safety net. He could disappear, and you'd still wait. He could hurt you, and you'd still stay. He knew your heart, and he thought he owned it. But now, it's like the air has changed. Your energy doesn't reach for him anymore. Your eyes don't search for his. You are no longer orbiting around him, and it terrifies him. Because what he never realized is this: you were the warmth, the life, the presence in the room. Without your care, the silence feels colder. Without your need, his ego feels smaller. Without your softness, the sharpness of his own edges begins to cut him, and that's when the obsession begins. Not because he suddenly loves you more, but because he doesn't know how to exist without your attention. Because your detachment forces him to sit with the parts of himself you used to protect him from. His own emptiness, his own fear, his own failures. He starts replaying moments. He rereads your old texts. He watches your stories. He wonders who you're talking to. He doesn't say it, but he notices everything now. The way your laugh sounds more free. The way your photos have a light in them that used to only appear when he was around, and it haunts him. You, in your softness, were his mirror. You reflected back the good he refused to believe about himself, but you also absorbed the pain he wouldn't face. Now that you're gone, there is no more shield, and for the first time he is left alone with his own reflection, and it doesn't look heroic anymore. He misses you, but not just you. He misses the version of himself he got to pretend to be when you loved him, and yet there is no doorway back, because you are not angry, you are not bitter, you are simply done, and that kind of ending, it's the one they never see coming. He sends a message, simple, harmless on the surface, something like, "Hey, just thinking about you, hope you're good." You stare at it, not coldly but quietly, not because you don't feel, but because you finally learned what not to feel for. There's no anger in you, only clarity, and that's what unsettles him most. You don't block him, you don't lash out, you don't rush to reply, and when or if you do, your words are soft but distant, polite, not warm, like someone who's woken up from a long dream and can finally see the sky. That tone, it breaks something in him, because it sounds like peace. And peace, to a man who once held your chaos in his hands like a trophy, feels like exile. He starts pulling memories from places he hasn't visited in years. The way you used to laugh too hard at your own jokes. The way you covered your mouth when you cried. The way you forgave without needing to be asked. The way you waited for him to meet you again and again, and always gave him one more chance. But he doesn't remember it in the way you remember it. He remembers comfort. You remember pain. He remembers being adored. You remember being invisible. He remembers your arms. You remember your voice, quieting itself just so he wouldn't walk away. And now, when he scrolls through your photos or rewatches that one video where you danced with bare feet in your kitchen, something clenches in his chest. Because he doesn't just miss you, he misses the version of himself that you reflected back. The one who could still believe he was enough, not because he had done the work, but because you had believed for both of you. And now, that mirror is gone. You were the witness to his better self. But not anymore. Now, he is alone. And obsession grows in that kind of solitude. It creeps in at night, when the world goes quiet and there's no more noise to distract him from the questions clawing at his chest. Why did she stop caring? Why didn't I notice sooner? Why does it feel like I'm the one being left behind now? He may tell himself it's because you met someone else. He'll try to convince himself you're faking this detachment, that this strength is just a mask, and underneath it, you still ache for him, that you still replay your own memories with tears in your eyes. But you don't, and that's not because you never loved him. It's because you did. You loved him in ways that bent your own soul. You gave him parts of yourself you had never given anyone. You stayed when you should have left. You believed when you should have walked away. But love, real love, doesn't ask you to disappear. And now that you've reappeared, not for him, but for you, it's a different kind of beauty. One that doesn't beg to be seen. One that doesn't crumble when ignored. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. And that decision, that silent revolution within you, it echoes louder than any goodbye you could have ever spoken. It's the sound of chains falling, of breath returning, of a woman remembering her worth in a world that convinced her it was something to earn. So when he obsesses, when he circles back, when he hovers just close enough to remind you of what once was let him, because obsession is not love. It's the noise someone makes when they realize they've lost something they never thought could walk away. There's something sacred about the silence that comes after heartbreak, not the kind filled with bitterness or regret, but the kind that sounds like your own breath finally returning to your body. The kind where, for the first time in what feels like forever, your voice is no longer whispering through someone else's absence. You wake up one morning and realize you didn't think about him yesterday, not because you forced yourself not to, not because you distracted yourself with noise, but because your heart was full of other things. Your coffee tasted like comfort. Your laugh came without effort. You caught your reflection in the mirror, and for a brief second you smiled at her. The girl who tried, the woman who rose, the soul who didn't abandon herself just to keep someone else. And that's when it all starts to fall apart for him. He may not show it. He may post as if he's fine, as if he's moved on. Maybe he's dating someone new. Maybe he's throwing himself into work, into noise, into anything that drowns the silence you used to fill. But when he's alone, when the performance ends and the world stops clapping, it hits him. You're gone, not just physically, but energetically, emotionally, spiritually. You've reclaimed the pieces of yourself he once held so carelessly. You've pulled them back into your own hands, stitched them together with gold, and now you wear your healing like armor. Not hard, not bitter, but whole. And that wholeness, it's what he never expected. Because when people take from you, they assume you'll always stay broken, that your light was theirs to dim, that your strength was borrowed from their presence. They forget that you were someone before them, and you will be someone long after. He doesn't know how to exist in the world where your eyes no longer search for him, where your laughter isn't his to trigger, where your softness isn't available for him to fall into after tearing it apart. He tries to reach out again. This time, it's not just a message. It's a memory wrapped in regret. Do you remember that night? Funny? I just saw someone who looked like you. I miss your energy. No one's ever made me feel the way you did. But you've learned to read the spaces between the words. You know the difference now between love and loneliness, between missing someone and missing what they did for you, between reaching out and returning. And still, a part of you softens, because you remember too. You remember the good, the softness, the electric connection that once felt like magic, the nights you stayed up dreaming together, the mornings he pulled you close without saying a word, the way he once looked at you like you were the only light in the room. But here's the thing about healing. It doesn't ask you to erase the past. It just gives you new eyes to see it with. And now, you see it clearly. It wasn't that he never cared. It's that he cared only when your care made him feel powerful. He loved the way you loved him. He adored the reflection of himself in your eyes. But he never stopped to ask how your heart felt when it was giving that much, when it was breaking silently just to be near him. You deserved more. And now you've become more, not for anyone else, not to prove a point, but because you were always meant to remember what you forgot while trying to be loved, that you are already worthy. He obsesses not because you've changed, but because for the first time, you haven't. You're not begging, you're not chasing, you're not folding yourself into a quieter shape just to keep someone beside you. You are standing, still, rooted, and he is watching, drowning in the echo of your silence. There's a particular kind of torment that settles in when someone realizes they can no longer reach you, not because you're gone, but because you're free. And freedom, to someone who only knew you through the lens of your pain, is unbearable. He begins to replay every moment he overlooked, not just the obvious ones, the birthdays he forgot, the promises he broke, but the smaller ones. The look in your eyes when you said you were fine, but your voice shook. The way your hand reached for his in a crowd, not out of need, but out of love. The way you waited for him to see you, even after he closed his eyes. But he didn't see it then. He couldn't. He wasn't looking for a soul. He was looking for something to fill the void. And now that you are no longer available to absorb his emptiness, it echoes through his bones. He tries to cope. He scrolls, drinks, distracts, tries to fill the space you left with noise. But nothing feels quite like you, because no one else saw him the way you did. And he can't unfeel the loss of that gaze, that warmth, that steady, unwavering love that waited at the door even when he forgot to come home. You were never perfect, but you were real, and real is rare. He starts showing up more boldly now. A voice note, a song you used to love, an apology wrapped in half-truths. Words like, "I didn't know how to love back then," or "you were always too good for me." But by the time they understand your worth, you've already rewritten the story. You no longer need the apology. You no longer crave the recognition. Because somewhere along the way, in the nights you spent alone, in the tears that felt like drowning, you found yourself again. And she's stronger than the woman who loved him. Not colder, not harder, just more honest. She no longer negotiates her boundaries for borrowed affection. She no longer confuses anxiety for chemistry. She no longer believes love is something you have to suffer for. And that's why he can't let go, because he can't reach her anymore. Not in the way he used to. Not through guilt. Not through nostalgia. Not through pretending. He lost access the moment you stopped needing him to give you what you learned to give yourself. That's the thing about emotional freedom. It isn't loud. It doesn't slam doors or scream its name. It simply no longer participates. It doesn't entertain breadcrumb messages. It doesn't keep space in the heart for someone who only ever offered a corner of theirs. It doesn't beg to be chosen. It chooses itself quietly, powerfully, unapologetically, and that for him is the real heartbreak. Not that you left, but that you didn't look back. He may find someone else, and maybe she laughs like you. Maybe she's soft like you. Maybe she even stays longer than she should, like you once did. But he knows it's not the same, because she didn't bleed for him. She didn't rebuild herself after breaking for his comfort. She didn't love him through her own abandonment. You did. And now, that love is no longer his to receive. Because here's the truth. Some people only realize your value when they feel the absence of your suffering for them. And by then, it's too late. Not because you're angry, but because you're healed. Healing doesn't always look like joy. Sometimes it looks like neutrality. You don't feel butterflies anymore when you see his name, but you don't feel rage either. You don't cry when his song plays, but you don't skip it. You don't rehearse conversations in your head you don't need to. There's nothing left to prove. That calm, it's not numbness. It's not disconnection. It's the sound of your nervous system finally exhaling after years of holding its breath. He notices that he can no longer trigger you, that your silence no longer hides desperation, that your stillness isn't a pause, it's a choice. And this unnerves him, because he lived in the tension, in the push and pull, in the heat of your longing. It fed him. It made him feel wanted, important, desired. Even when he couldn't give you what you needed, he knew you needed it from him. That was his power. Now you need nothing, not because you don't feel, not because you don't still carry traces of love in some quiet pocket of your soul, but because you've turned inward. You've started tending to the garden he trampled. You've begun pouring into the places you once drained to keep him full. And suddenly, his obsession takes on a new shape. He wants you to care again. Not love, not connection, just care. He wants to know he can still move you, that his presence still lives somewhere under your skin. He craves the emotional chaos you used to bring when you were hurting, because even your pain made him feel seen. But you've taken your chaos home. You've stopped performing your grief for someone who never honored its depth. You've stopped explaining your wounds to someone who refused to stop cutting. And so now he spins. He sends longer messages, opens up in ways he never did when it mattered. He says things like, "I'm in therapy now," or "I finally get it," or "I wish I could go back and do it all differently." And maybe part of you aches a little, because you always wanted him to do the work. You always believed there was a version of him beneath the defense and detachment that could hold your love fully. But you also know this. Healing done too late is just another form of performance. He isn't healing because he's ready. He's healing because you're gone. There's a difference. You've learned to recognize sincerity not by words, but by consistency. Not by the size of the apology, but by the depth of change that comes without needing to be seen. And he still wants to be seen, still wants to be forgiven, still wants to be saved. But you are no longer a sanctuary for someone else's redemption. You are your own home now. And no, it doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself not to re-enter the place where your spirit once had to shrink just to survive. He will likely always circle back in some way. People often return to the places where they were most loved, especially when they finally feel the absence of it. But you, my love, are no longer an open wound. You are a healed scar, a story, a lesson, a poem that ended before the last verse was written, and that's okay. Some endings don't need closure, they just need silence. And when you finally give yourself that, not as a punishment to them, but as a gift to you, the obsession they feel becomes a mirror they cannot shatter. He will want you again, but he will never have this version of you, the one who didn't just survive him, but transcended. He sees you now, not the way you wanted to be seen when you were standing right in front of him, arms wide, heart exposed, voice trembling with every "I'm fine" that really meant "please love me better" number. He sees you now because you're no longer looking for him to see you at all. That's the paradox, the cruel twist. The moment you stop asking for love to prove itself, love begins chasing you in all the places you no longer need it. And he chases you now not because he loves more deeply, but because you do. You finally love yourself in the way you once begged him to. And there is nothing more magnetic than someone who no longer needs to be needed. He'll call it regret. He'll call it clarity. He'll say he's changed, that he knows now what he had, that losing you woke him up, and you'll hear it. You'll hear it with the same ears that once strained to catch the smallest crumbs of validation. Only this time, it won't sound like hope. It will sound like memory, because you're no longer living in the story where his love is the reward for your pain. You're not holding out for the moment he realizes your worth. You're not auditioning for the role of enough. You already are. The obsession he feels, it's not you he's chasing, it's the version of himself he could only access through your light. And now that light has returned home, to its rightful place, to your chest, your breath, your reflection, and you no longer hand it over in the name of connection. That shift is irreversible, and it's maddening to someone who once fed on your doubt, your devotion, your desperation to heal what was never yours to fix. He'll say all the right things. He might even mean them. But you'll know that love doesn't beg for another chance when it had 1,000 small ones. Love doesn't wait until you're whole to remember how to treat you like you matter. And even though a part of you once longed for this moment, this apology, this chasing, this realization, you don't need it anymore, because the girl who needed it is gone. She was the one who stayed up late, writing long messages, and then deleting them. The one who made excuses for his distance. The one who believed her love could soften someone else's sharpness. She was real. She was brave. And she deserved more. You mourned her. You held her as she cried, and now you've become the woman who answers her prayers not by getting him back, but by getting yourself back. This kind of return is the rarest kind. The kind that doesn't seek revenge or recognition. The kind that just lives, unapologetically, lightly, powerfully. He obsesses because you've become untouchable, not because you've built walls, but because you've grown roots. You're no longer swayed by sweet words from a bitter mouth. You no longer fall for chaos disguised as passion. You've rewritten what love feels like, and it no longer feels like him. That's what he never expected. Not your anger, not your tears, but your peace. The way you let go without turning it into a fire. The way you stopped waiting and started blooming. The way your absence made more noise than your presence ever did. So he'll keep watching, from the outside, tracing the shape of what he lost, while you step deeper and deeper into the life you were always meant to live, the one where you are no longer background to someone else's story. You are the story. You always were. And now, he walks with a weight he doesn't know how to name. It doesn't scream. It doesn't cry. It hums beneath the surface of everything like a song stuck in the back of his mind. Your name lingers, not because you said it, but because you no longer do. He sees you thriving, glowing, maybe not loudly, maybe not with grand gestures or declarations, but in that quiet, undeniable way. In your eyes, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you smile without hesitation, in the way your joy no longer needs a reason outside of you. You're not proving anything, you're just being. And that is what breaks him. Because for the first time, he's not just missing you, he's grieving the version of you he could have loved. If only he had arrived as the man you once believed he could be. But that grief, it's his. Not yours to hold, not yours to comfort, not yours to fix. You've grieved already. You've walked through the fire he's just now beginning to feel. You've sat with the loneliness he's only starting to understand. You've broken in the places he now pokes at with questions like, do you still think of me? Or was any of it real? And the truth is, yes, it was real, but it was real for you. Real in the way you gave, real in the way you hoped, real in the way you stayed long after your spirit whispered, please go. And that's the tragedy of it, that someone can live inside your love and not recognize the miracle of it until they are left with nothing but the echo. He may try to come back, he may say he's ready now, that he's healed, that he understands, and maybe he has changed. Maybe there's truth in his eyes this time. But you've changed too. You no longer love from your wounds. You love from your wholeness. And that version of you requires a different kind of presence, one that doesn't just want you, but meets you. One that doesn't chase your light, but brings their own. One that knows love is not just about being chosen, but about being safe in that choosing. So when he obsesses, it's not about the future. It's about what he can't undo. He cannot unsee the woman you've become. He cannot return to the time when you would have answered his midnight calls with trembling hope. He cannot recreate the space you once held open for him, even as it cost you pieces of yourself. Because that space, it's occupied now by your peace, by your freedom, by yourself. You didn't just survive the love that almost broke you. You became the woman who refused to abandon herself ever again. And that's what haunts him most. Not that you left. Not that you're gone, but that you're happy. without him, without needing anything from him, without even needing him to know. That kind of happiness, the kind that doesn't include someone who once thought they were your everything. That's what turns longing into obsession. And yet, you keep walking, not to run from him, but to walk with yourself, to finally be your own home, to be the voice you once searched for in others, to hold the love you once gave away too easily and offer it now, only to those who can hold it with reverence. You are not lost to him, he is lost to you.